On August 23rd, 2020, Roman Reigns returned from an extended absence from the WWE at SummerSlam. Over the next 2 months, he aligned himself with his new special counsel, Paul Heyman. He regained the title he never lost and defended that championship in two pay-per-view matches against his cousin, Jey Uso. The finish of the first ever I Quit match, contested in the Hell in a Cell, saw Jey quitting to save his brother Jimmy from a Roman Reigns guillotine choke. The initial consequences were set on the Smackdown prior to the match, where Jey and his brother would be excommunicated if Jey lost. The tribal consequences were revised the night of the match, where Paul informed the audience that if Jey lost, he would become Roman's
an indentured servant.
What is the fallout of Jey saying the words "I quit"? It's time to rewind the Bloodline. Before we get started, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. It's the best way to support and take the journey of rewinding the Bloodline with us. We are now post Hell in a Cell 2020 at the October 30th episode of Friday Night Smackdown. We saw two very intense matches between Roman and Jey over the last two episodes, and now, as Roman said,
this time there's going to be real consequences.
Goose, how about you get us kicked off with the show?
Yes, we go right into the intro to the show, and we hit the big dog music. So Michael Cole tells us again, Big Dog is dead. And we kick off the show tonight with the still reigning Universal Champion and his special counsel. So Roman comes out with the Wreck Everyone tank, belt in hand, and Paul by his side. Jey is already in the ring waiting, and Michael Cole tells us that Jey is ready to fall in line as a result of Hell in a Cell this past Sunday.
And the way that the camera panned to Jey, I felt so bad for him. He looked so defeated as it just panned right over Roman's shoulder to him. And they cut to a highlight package with Paul's voice over top reminding us that when Jey says "I quit," he will become Roman's indentured servant.
And man, them cutting from the brooding music to when Roman's a monster to the soft piano when Jimmy runs in. It literally reminds me about when you talked about the Jekyll and Hyde persona that Roman had that we were seeing over these last couple of matches. Totally exemplified here for the audience. It was subtle in the match, and now they hit you over the face with it. And what do they say? Show me, don't tell me. And they're showing now. And I think that's really smart.
Yes, it is. And they cut to the dramatic music as Jey quits. They repeat the voiceover of Paul reminding us of these consequences.
Becomes an indentured servant.
Yeah, and so now the three are standing in the ring. Paul has the microphone. I'm so happy. And Jey grabs the microphone right away.
I'm so happy.
Love that bit.
Yes.
And Jey says,
You did not beat me.
You know me, Oos. You know I'm not going to say I quit. I don't give a dang how bad you beat me. You know I don't get down like that. You ain't that kind of person, and you ain't beat me.
And then Roman says,
Can make all the excuses you want.
What I tell you, what I say, I was going to make you quit.
And what you do, you quit.
Take the oath, accept the membership,
and fall in line.
And Jey says that it was a snake move what Roman did.
That's a snake move you did.
He can't get down with Roman. He doesn't respect Roman. The title's got Roman tripping. Jey says,
You used the only person in the world that I would say I quit for.
You knew what you was doing. You knew exactly what you was doing, Oos.
I really like that they really had to force Jey's hand to make him actually say "I quit," because that is true. That is the only person that he would say "I quit" for.
Absolutely. Not only that, but, and we'll get to it, but they did a great job sort of calling it in the ring here, changing on the fly with this storyline to make everything fit. They retrofit everything really nice here.
Yes, and I also really like the fact that he said that was a snake move. I really like that because it made you feel like Roman went to the deepest, darkest place that he possibly could to get what he wanted.
Exactly. And he knew because he knows Jey as well as anyone except his own brother.
Right.
He knew what would push his buttons and what would get him there. Really cool little layer.
Roman goes on to say,
Of course I did.
and then Jey responds with, how could you? And Roman says, how could I not? So they're still showing you like how just disgustingly dirty Roman was here. And just the way that Roman was so just cool and calm here, and Jay's just so energetic, and he's just so amped because he's just so angry at how could Roman do that to him? And I just thought that this was so well told, that how calm Roman could be, but also how like menacing and just dirty he could be.
Well, what it did was it juxtaposed the emotions, put them right next to each other. And so it amplified each emotion. And that was really cool. Seeing one being so calm with the other being so hot. And look, man, this is the layer of reality because we've all been there. We've all been so hot at somebody that is giving you the, oh, I don't care. And it only makes you more angry. And they did that here. Really cool. Yeah. So Roman says,
Now, you still don't understand. Paul, he still doesn't
understand. These are the things that you have to do to have this. And he shows him the title. Roman talks about responsibilities, the burden of being the face of the WWE. And he says, I'm telling you,
The consequences are real.
you saw on the stage, my dad, your uncle, the eldest, the highest of chiefs, all the way down to the youngest in our family are all behind me.
All back.
And I thought that this was another really cool callback to the Jey Chronicle. And we talked about that on the Clash of the Champions episode. Jay's little son being like, I want Uncle Ooh-Ah to win. And I thought that was just a nice little underlayer that they threw in there, that even the youngest back me, not you.
Right. And without saying the words your own son.
Right.
Like it's one of those if you know kind of deals.
Uh-huh.
And that's really good, man. That's sort of next level stuff. So he says, if you won't fall in line, you're out of the family. And I get it.
I'd be angry too. I understand.
I'd be livid. But let's be honest.
What can you do?
Oh, and Roman baits Jey. He's taunting him that there's nothing he can do no matter how mad he is. And Jey screams,
I hate you!
and just how emotional that Jey is, and just how stoic Roman is. Like what we just talked about, the juxtaposition of all of it. And Roman says that he's sure that Jey hates him right now.
But I love you.
I've always loved you, and I will say it for the last time. By the end of the night,
You will fall in line.
Yeah, dude, good stuff. And I have to say that where there was the first continuity error that we found, they closed a go home angle saying Jey is excommunicated if he loses. And then we come back 2 days later on the show with Heyman saying that Jey would be an indentured servant. This does make for like a make good, just for the sake of the story. So Jey, and this is what I really liked about this, Jey now has a choice. So Roman beat him to a pulp. And now we've moved the story to, you know what? I love you so much that I'm going to let you choose to fall in line or be out. And I thought that that was a really smart layer. So here, obviously, Jey doesn't want to do this, but if he's going to, he needs to eat crow. He needs to do the one thing that he said he wasn't going to do, which was acknowledge his cousin, who he thought was his equal, as his superior. And so basically Roman on national television is breaking him back and making him humble, like the madman from Tehran once said.
Roman's music hits. He walks off. Jey is now alone. He's toiling in the ring. Michael Cole tells us now that Jey needs to take all of this pent-up rage and redirect it, because Jey will be facing Daniel Bryan on Smackdown to qualify for Team Blue. So the first ever match in over 4 months for Daniel Bryan. It's really cool that it's against Jey, because Bryan kept putting him over in that lead up to Clash about how he did in his return promos, and in his backstage interview, he acknowledges Jey and just mentions how Roman hasn't beaten Jey yet.
Roman Reigns has not been able to beat Jey Uso.
Which I thought was a really interesting layer that they're adding, and they're starting to add different people to the story now.
Absolutely. And look, man, who better to put you over than Daniel Bryan? We do have Kevin Owens qualifying for the team first, beating Dolph Ziggler. And here's some other things going on just for context of how WWE is in this creative desert. And then there is this Oasis Bloodline storyline ready to save the company. So Lars Sullivan did a really weird sit-down interview with Corey Graves. Ray's daughter, Aaliyah, and Buddy Murphy are sweet on each other. Aaliyah's mom's open-minded to it, but Ray and Dawn won't even talk to her right now.
Yeah.
Aaliyah chooses Murphy, and this is actually when his first name appeared, when Vince was doing that stuff. Over her dad and brother, we cut to the back. Kayla's interviewing Daniel Bryan. This is where you had said about him putting over Jey Uso, saying that he had never beaten Roman. Mm-hmm. We have the Liberator Sami Zayn doing an interview in the back where he lets us know that he'll be wrestling U.S. champion Bobby Lashley at Survivor Series. Sammy represents every country around the world, and Bobby represents one country that stinks. And look, dude, uncage this man. Yeah. I cannot wait until we get Sammy Uso, and so we're going to have to just slog through this Liberator stuff until it comes.
Yeah.
So after another Sasha Banks and Bayley promo segment, we do cut to another promo for 30 Days of The Undertaker streaming on the network because we will have the Undertaker 30-day celebration at Survivor Series.
And I can't wait to talk about that. That's going to be in a few more episodes here. But we come back from break and Daniel Bryan is out first to the ring. He's firing up with the screens in the background and the yes hands, and Jay's music hits and he comes to the ring and he's all business.
I like this a lot.
I did too. So Cole continues to put over what kind of emotional wreck that Jey is in right now. And Jay's doing a really good job of selling it with his facials and just his demeanor on his way to the ring. And the way that this match started with DB taking control over a conflicted Jey with some chain wrestling, I thought was really interesting.
It does. And then even better is this becomes the story of the match. Obviously, Jey cuts off Daniel Bryan, and essentially he's getting the heat for the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So we got some quick shine, and now we're getting some heel heat from super babyface Jey. So a little foreshadowing there. So Daniel Bryan starts a comeback with some yes kicks. Jey goes to the outside, and Roman's music hits.
It looks to regroup.
So Roman now comes out to the ring with Paul, and Jey is on the outside. And the visual here of Jey hiding behind the barricade as Roman showed up, it just made me feel like I was in trouble watching. And we cut to commercial. We come back, and Roman and Paul are now in the aisle watching as Jey gets caught in a trio woe with a drop kick.
Yeah, they do a spot where Daniel Bryan goes for a back suplex and Jey reverses it into a lateral press from the top. And dude, this was so scary because this guy retired because of his head. And the whole time they're coming down, I'm thinking, don't squish this fella's brain. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a really, really, really like kind of spot. So Jey hits an enziguri. He goes to the outside. Bryan charges. Jey hits him with a super kick from the floor as Bryan Danielson's trying to dive between the ropes. I thought that was a little twist on the old Shelton Benjamin Michaels super kick. Jey climbs up to the top. He goes for the Uso splash. Daniel Bryan cuts him off, gets him in a label lock. Jey gets the rope, and now he cuts off Bryan. Jey hits some super kicks then, hits the Uso splash from the top, and Jey is qualified alongside Kevin Owens for the Survivor Series team.
So Roman now makes his way into the ring. Jey looks at Roman.
You're the head of the table.
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
And Roman stands, and he's just looking down at Daniel Bryan with this death stare. And without saying a single word, Jey hits DB with a super kick while Bryan is still down.
Oh my God.
Goes to the outside, climbs to the top, and nails another Uso splash.
Yeah, this was big, man. Cole says that he's doing what he had to do, he being Jey, and that Jey says that he understands now and that he loves Roman too. Roman points to Daniel Bryan and for the first time says, Make him understand how much you love me. So Jey gives a yeet, walks to the outside, grabs Daniel Bryan, and starts wailing on him as he's screaming. He throws Daniel Bryan into the steps, clears the announce table, and then throws Bryan on top. He gives him another Uso splash through the table, grabs Bryan's head, and smashes it into the table. And then we go off the air with Roman giving this like wry smile into the camera, like his sort of villainous.
Yeah, and that's the same feeling I got as Roman was walking up the steps, as if business was finished.
Yeah, the deed was done.
Yes.
So we've added another layer to the story, and we're really setting the table for a wild ride coming up. So take us to the next week, John. What do we got?
So next up is the November 6th, 2020 episode of Smackdown, and we are now just 2 weeks away from Survivor Series, and we actually kicked this off with boss time and not Roman or Jey.
Yeah, really interesting. Now, this was a women's title match, so it does make sense. You want to showcase that. Sasha beats Bayley with the bank statement, and we're told that tonight we are also getting Otis versus Rollins and Ray versus King Corbin to see who qualifies for the SmackDown side of the Survivor Series Best of the Best match alongside Jey and Kevin Owens. And just one little note, as Sasha's making her way back up to the aisle after she wins, Carmella attacks her. So we are in tough times here in 2020 WWE.
Yes, but it gets better here. So we cut to the back, and Jey is pouring a cup of coffee, and he's about to be interviewed by Kayla. And Kevin Owens walks over, and he's wearing an American Dream Dusty Rhodes shirt. This alone, if you cut to present day WWE and you see the problems between Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes, it's insane. They are here in November of 2020, and Kevin Owens is wearing a Dusty shirt. And what's really interesting is that nearly 17 months later after this is when Cody returns to the company at WrestleMania. This is the moment where Kevin Owens' problems start with the Bloodline. You cut to present day now, where Kevin Owens and Cody are going to be facing each other for the world title at the Rumble in 2 weeks because Cody is being too cool with the Bloodline. Like, when we eventually get to present day Bloodline someday, it's going to be great. But the parallels and the continuity that are shown throughout history as we go forward is really eye-opening.
I'm glad you said all of that. And it should be said that sometimes the universe just makes things happen. Things get manifested and things fall into line. And there is no way that they thought that they were going to get Cody Rhodes in that company in 2020.
Absolutely not.
And here's KO wearing this shirt. And here we are 4 years later, just as you said, the feud is built on the Bloodline. The problems start here. And if you really wanted to go back and look as we're doing, the synchronicities, man, it's really wild.
So KO says that he saw what happened last week, and now what?
Roman's got you getting his coffee. Shouldn't that be Heyman's job?
Jey asks what he said, gives him a little, what'd you say? Asks if Kevin Owens thinks that his family's a joke, and KO says, of course not. He just wants to talk because they're partners at Survivor Series. KO does admit that he doesn't have a great track record at that event. He was just hoping that this year would go a little bit better. And because they're partners, he just wanted to check in on him. So then KO advises Jey to maybe
Probably switch to decaf or something.
as he walks off. We then get a formal announcement that Survivor Series will be the final farewell to The Undertaker.
So we go back to Kayla, who is interviewing Jey Uso. She throws it to a video package to remind Jey of what's transpired over the last few weeks. And the voice overlay is Roman and Jey's interaction from the start of the show the week prior, with Roman saying that he's going to make Jey quit, and Jey saying that Roman did him dirty, and Roman saying that Jey still doesn't understand. They cut to the Daniel Bryan match, and Jey getting the pin, acknowledging Roman, and proving his love by beating Bryan down.
Right. And this stretcher stuff, I take it this was off camera because they were showing all of this as if it was on TV. And I'm thinking like, dude, I just watched this episode minutes ago. Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, I agree, because it felt like out of nowhere, because we didn't see that on the Peacock episode, but that absolutely was shown on socials that there was a beatdown and he was stretchered out and all that.
Okay. Yeah. Fair then.
Kayla then asked Jey, can he explain his actions? And Jey said he did what he had to do.
It was nothing personal.
He considers Daniel Bryan a friend. It ain't blood, and family is forever. So Kayla now pokes the bear and says,
and do what Roman Reigns tells you to do, right?
and Jey says, oh, you got jokes too? And Kayla's biggest foil Paul Heyman creeps into the scene, and that the way that he just slid right in there, Chris Collinsworth style, popped me huge.
He gives Kayla the
Hi, how are you? I'm
fine, thank you. Question: did Roman Reigns authorize this interview? It was rhetorical. No, he did not. And Paul tells Jey that Roman needs to talk to him, as Jey tells Kayla that she's throwing shade.
So we come back for commercial, and Paul is talking to Jey, telling him that if he's going to do something, he needs Roman's permission. And Jey is upset, saying,
Paul, I need permission to do an interview?
And Paul says,
Yes, I'm glad you understand.
So Jey wants to talk to Roman, and Paul tells Jey to stay here. And Paul,
And I'll bring him to you when he's ready.
so I thought that we were going to cut to the match, but Roman actually does come out right away with Paul trailing him.
Yeah, and Roman asks why he's doing interviews, why he's talking to Kayla, and why he's on set. And he says,
They're trying to tell you a story or something?
No, so I was just
Jey says, I was just doing an interview. And Roman says, there's a chain of command. If you want to do something like that,
Then you come talk to me.
if you can't find me, talk to Paul. And then Roman asks what's up with KO. Jey
fools. You just make a dumb joke.
and Roman says, it didn't sound like jokes, sound like disrespect. And if he disrespects Jey, he disrespects Roman, and then he disrespects the entire bloodline. Little bloodline drop right there. If someone like Kevin Owens is running their mouth about our family, who sits at the top of the mountain, everything we ever worked for,
You gonna just let that slide? You gonna let someone like that run their mouth about it?
Jey says he's going to handle it and walks off. And Roman asks Paul,
You know about this?
and Paul says,
I kind of found out about it while it was happening.
and Roman says, you're supposed to know everything. You're here to handle everything.
So I don't have to.
And Paul says that he understands. And Roman tells Paul to find Adam Pearce, and we're going to handle this KO problem tonight.
Yeah, so we cut forward and Aaliyah comes out with Murphy, one name, and distracts Rey Mysterio. Rey tells her to go home or something. Corbin hits Rey with an end of days, and Corbin is now on Team Smackdown, joining Kevin Owens and Jey Uso. So a little foreshadowing for later. After the match, we're told that we have breaking news. At the behest of his cousin, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso will be wrestling Kevin Owens tonight.
And next, Rollins beats Otis with a stomp after Murphy came out and distracted Otis. So the Survivor Series team is now Jey, Kevin Owens, Baron Corbin, and Seth Rollins. And it's just really weird that we're doing this Messiah disciple thing with Murphy and Rollins literally on the same exact show where we're kind of doing the same exact thing with Roman and Jey.
Yeah, you're right about that. It is absolutely sort of running it back worse. The main event of the show, Jey comes out first. His infographic now literally says, is under the leadership of his family member, Roman Reigns. And I laughed out loud at that. I thought that was awesome. So Jey's pacing around the ring. Kayla is interviewing Kevin Owens and asks him if things got out of hand earlier.
KO says that
I have a tendency to speak my
mind. It's almost like a bad habit. And if Roman and his special counsel have a problem with it, so be it. So Owen says that what Jey did to Daniel Bryan last week,
Roman Reigns made Jey Uso do to Daniel Bryan last.
And KO is someone who has done very questionable things over his career, but they were done at his own bidding, not under the instruction of someone else. And he finishes the promo with, so Jey, the beating you've got coming is
100% from
me.
Love that, dude. Kevin Owens' music hits. He comes to the ring. Cole tells us that KO and Daniel Bryan have become good friends. Cole runs down Daniel Bryan's injuries from last week, and Roman and Paul are just in the back watching this match as Jey and KO are going back and forth. And it's interesting that Cole keeps noting about Adam Pearce bending the knee to Roman. Also, we have Graves mentioning that Roman has an incredible amount of influence with The Office, and I sort of thought that this was a wink and a nod to the Reign of Terror.
Yeah, ooh, that's a nice little catch there. So Jey sends KO to the outside, and Paul hands the belt to Roman. He tells Roman, I understand, and leaves. Roman puts the belt over his shoulder and watches on. We come back from commercial. Jey is in control. Cole mentions he's picked up the aggression, but KO cuts him off and takes control. KO is climbing to the top when Paul Heyman makes his way to the ring. This distracts Kevin Owens, and Jey hits KO with a super kick and then a dive to the outside.
And Cole and Graves are just going back and forth about why Paul Heyman's out here, Roman's influence on Jey, and Graves does make the point that this is the best that Jey's ever been. He says that Paul's out here just to observe the growth of Jey, and Michael Cole's just going off trying to play babyface about how despicable this is and everything else.
And KO nails Jey with a super kick, and we cut to Paul's very concerned face. KO hits a cannonball in the corner, and Paul buries his face in his hands. KO hits a senton, and Jey kicks out at 2. Heyman is just deflated with this effort. Jey hits a move and gets a 2 count. Paul is growing frustrated on the outside.
And here's the thing, man. Paul writes it and Paul lives it. And that's what makes him very special, is that he is great at telling his own stories. He really is.
He is.
So Jey climbs to the top. KO meets him with the right hand, tries to throw blows as he climbs up. Jey pushes him off, jumps over him, runs to attack Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens hits a pop-up power bomb, gets a 2.99 count as Jey gets his foot on the rope. Roman's music hits again, and this time Roman doesn't come out right away. Jey hits the low blow and the super kick as KO's distracted. Jey hits the Uso splash and gets the pin. My only problem, this is like the 5th time that we've done this show and this finish tonight. Like, we just saw this with Ray for the Survivor Series qualifying. Like, sheesh, man, get some, where's Pat Patterson for these finishes?
And the interesting thing that Jey gets the pin, he daps up Paul, and it's Roman's music still playing. It's not Jey's. So Roman comes out, puts his hand on Jey's shoulder, raises the title as he, Jey, and Paul look on. Michael Cole tells us that friends are not blood and family is forever as we cut to black.
Great stuff, brother. Great stuff. So tell me, my man, we did 2 episodes of Smackdown here, but there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Your island of relevancy for this episode, what you got?
Yeah, I have to put Jey on it for acknowledging Roman as the head of the table and tribal chief, because he really, it felt like such a big deal when he finally did his turn.
And yeah, and that's just it. It's only setting the table for the future. Big moment now, going to be bigger later on. I love it.
So what do you got for the Ocean of Obscurity?
Tonight, into the Ocean of Obscurity, I will nominate the Friday Night Messiah story for stepping on the Bloodline's toes. Get off my yard, man. We got a good thing going on. We don't need to see it twice, and worse the second time.
Well, just wait till Survivor Series. That's all I got to say about that. So that is the next 2. That's the 2 episodes that happen after Hell in a Cell. Now we are starting the build of Survivor Series. So in episode 8, we are going to be covering the next 2 Smackdowns, and that's where we see an injection of a brand new character adding into the storyline. I can't wait to get to it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Rewinding the Bloodline. We got is Bloodline coming up. I can't wait to get to Survivor Series because I have a lot of things to say about Survivor Series. So I'm Johnny Bake Show.
I'm Teddy Mongoose.
And we just called it in the ring.